Namaste. I'm Gauri Moghe, and I welcome you all to the session of Toycathon on toys from Vedas. I think this is a very interesting topic, that toys from Vedas, and we are going to deal with many interesting aspects of this subject. But before that, I would like to say something, and I think Toycathon is very interesting initiative, and my colleague Chinmay would like to say something on this.
Thank you, Gauri, and namaste, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be a part of this initiative, Toycathon, inspired by the vision of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Ji Modi. Toycathon is a very relevant and needed initiative. It is not only going to substitute the imports of roughly $1.2 billion, but it is also going to give plenty of opportunities to youngsters in this country to come up with something really innovative, something really creative. So I am absolutely delighted to be a part of this. Gauri, you can perhaps tell everyone how we can help them when it comes to topics which are relevant for us. So,
Certainly, Chinmay. When we were told to speak on these subjects, actually, we are representing our institute, Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute. And let me tell you something. This institute is working in this particular area of heritage, Sanskrit literature, history, more than 100 years. So we have that kind of legacy, and still we are working on all these topics. So we have a great treasure of research on which we can create some new things. So today we are going to discuss some points which are actually related to Vedas and Vedic literature. And when we have decided to conduct this session as a team, Chinmay, me, and Professor Shrikant Bahulkar, we have decided to uh, speak on three aspects in this session. So the first segment will be introduction to Vedas and some Vedic points which are actually related to our problem statements, because we have given 6 problem statements on which you can create your own toys or video games. So I think let us begin with the first segment, and that will be conducted by Professor Shrikant Bahulkar.
Friends, I have been asked to tell you some stories related to different aspects of Indian culture. As we know, our Honorable Prime Minister has come up with an idea of Toycathon. It's a very novel idea. It is an idea related to digital games that would give a message. At the same time, it will be a pleasure to play with those toys, and that message will be related to Indian culture, message of Indian culture, inspired by Indian culture. He discussed the idea with senior ministers and officials, and he made an announcement of Ek Bharat, Shrestha Bharat. And so now let us talk about some aspects of Indian culture. What is Indian culture? It's a very complex phenomenon. Indian culture involves a number of things: the history, geography, language, philosophy, various traditions, folk traditions, and so on. So it is very difficult to speak briefly about Indian culture, but it is possible to discuss some aspects of Indian culture. This culture involves a number of things, as I said, a number of religions in India, ancient religions, which are called classical religions, the religions of the Veda, Jainism, Buddhism, and Hinduism. At the same time, in the later stage, we have Islam, Christianity, Sikh, Judaism, and so on. We have a number of languages, we have a number of traditions, we have a number of systems of Indian philosophy, and a lineage of knowledge. There are a number of things, scriptures, written tradition, unwritten tradition, which reflect, which represent various systems of knowledge. In short, I can mention two things, 14 Vidyas and 64 Kalas. What is Vidya and what is Kala? Vidyas are various disciplines, and Kalas, they are arts and various skills, various techniques. So 14 Kalas, 14 Vidyas. 14 Vidyas include 4 Vedas. You must be knowing the names of these 4 Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda and Atharva Veda. And there are 6 later texts which are called Vedangas, which are 6 sciences which are useful for understanding of the Veda. For example, phonetics or grammar or astronomy or geometry and mathematics and so on. So these are 10, 4 Vedas and 6 Vedangas, 6 disciplines or 6 sciences. At the same time, Nyaya and Mimamsa, the systems of philosophy, Purana and Dharma Shastra history, that is science of religion, science of ritual. Also there are some other disciplines, some other sciences called Upaveda. For 4 Vedas, each Veda have one Upaveda. For example, Dhanurveda, science of archery, or Sthapatya Veda, architecture, or Gandharva Veda, music, and Ayurveda, Indian medicine. So these are all Vidyas and 64 Kalas. It's a list of 64 techniques, 64 skills. I don't go into details and I will not take your much time by enumerating all those 64 names of Kalas. But as you know, Gita Vadya Nritya, which is called Sangeeta, music, that is singing, dancing, and vocal music, also instrumental music, vocal music, and dance. Also, there are paintings and other science skills, other arts. So, all these arts, they are 64 in number. In ancient times, a student would study most of these Vidyas and some Kalas. We know Gurukul. A student was supposed to go to Guru's house, stay there, study there seriously, and he was expected to study continuously for 14 years at least. In ancient times, there was no vacation. There was no chutti. There was no leave. Every day, the student has to study. And whenever there are certain days when they are not supposed to study, there are studies of other sciences. So study means study of Veda, which is called Swadhyaya. But Swadhyaya is not just connected with Vedic studies, even in other traditions. For example, in Buddhism also they have Swadhyaya. What is Swadhyaya? Memorizing of sacred texts, studying the sacred text. So this is something like memorization. In ancient times, there were no books, there were no manuscripts, and the student has to study orally, just based on his memory. He has to recite the Vedas and other sciences. So all these Vedas have come down to us mainly through oral tradition. Later on, then they started writing the books. So we have a written form of the Vedas also. But at least some 5,000 years ago, we are not sure whether they had any script. So they had to study it rigorously. And so 14 Vidyas were mainly based on memorization recitation of that. So I have given you some idea about 14 Vidyas and 64 Kalas. But what was the origin of all those? Naturally, many people think that the origin of all Vidyas and all Kalas or all knowledge is the Veda, the ancient most scriptures. So I was discussing the matter, this issue with my colleagues, and then I thought that it would be interesting to tell you about Vedic deities. Why am I supposed to speak about that? Because I belong to an institute called Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute in Pune, which is of 103 years old. And this is an institute for Oriental studies, means India, neighboring countries and other Asian studies, other Asian countries. Mainly in this institute, there are scholars who have been working on Vedas and later literature, Sanskrit literature, Buddhism, Jainism, and so on. And so I thought that let us get something from the institute. There is knowledge which is existing in the research done by the scholars in this institute of Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute. So I would first go to Vedas. So we have to see what is that. What is Veda? Veda means knowledge. I have already spoken about 4 Vedas. There are 4 aspects of knowledge, 4 ways of recitation. And Vedas, especially the Veda, the first, is mostly a collection of songs or hymns or praises of various deities. I use the word deity, not Deva or Devi. It is Devata in Vedic context. Devata means just not God and Goddess. For ancient Indian man, Vedic man, anything which is to be respected, which is to be prayed is Devata. So even a river can be a Devata. A mountain can be a Devata. All these Devatas, all these deities have different aspects. There are a number of deities, but most important deities are deities, Devatas related to natural forces. We know Prithvi, Aap, Tej, Vayu, Akash, the earth, Aap, waters, Tej, fire, Vayu, wind, Vayu, and Akash, space. We have all these Devatas in Vedas. And there are suktas, there are hymns, prayers to these Devatas. Why are we supposed to pray these deities, these natural forces? As we know, natural forces can be good or bad. And there were calamities. So we have to pacify these deities. We have to ask a favor of these deities. And the most important of these deities was Agni, fire. Vedic people were fire worshippers. They used to keep fire at their home. They used to maintain that. Because there were no matchboxes or something like that, or electricity. So they could not produce fire. They had to produce fire and maintain that. So it was a fire worship. Naturally, the worship of fire was an integral part of their life. So, Agni, whenever you think of these deities or you open the book that is Rigveda, the first hymns you would find the hymns or prayers to Agni. So, Agni is described in many ways. Agni was personified. Agni has got beard. Agni has got 7 tongues. He was called Sapta Jihva, 7 tongues. And so Agni has 7 tongues or 7 flames. Vedic people used to worship the fire, the sacred fire, every day, morning and evening. They would call it Pratar Homa and Sayam Homa. And they would offer food into that fire. Why was that? It was not just for the sake of Agni, but it was for other deities also. Because Agni was a messenger of all these deities. He would carry that food to gods so that the gods can eat that. So this is Agni. We have another important deity called Indra. You must be knowing the word Indra. He was the king of gods, greatest god, a hero, a brave person who would fight against all calamities or obstacles. Indra was a very favorite hero of Vedic people. And so, in the hymns or praises or prayers addressed to Indra, there are a number of things mentioned. His fights and how he rescued people. Indra is also a rain god. So, it rains, it means the god favors us. In Sanskrit, we call it Devo Varshati. Devo Varshati means God Indra showers rains upon us. So, he was a rain god and also personification of the rain god. So he would remove all obstacles and see that it would rain at a proper time. There were some demons, some enemies who would try to control that water, to create obstruction to that water. These enemies are called, Indra's enemies are called Vrutra or Shambhara or Ahi, means serpent, and so on. And Shambhara and all these deities, these enemies, they would live in the mountains, but Indra would fight against them and he would kill them. There was a weapon of Indra, which is called Vajra. You must be knowing this word Vajra. Vajra means a very hard, a very powerful weapon, specially made for Indra by a deity called Tvashta. It is an imperishable weapon. And so whatever is hard, whatever is imperishable is called Vajra. We have another deity called Savita, the sun. He travels, as we know, in the sky from east to west, from morning to evening, and he blesses all living creatures. He is a very popular deity. He has got golden eyes. He has got golden chariot. And he is praised in many ways. He rides a golden car. He is the life force of people. He inspires people to work. So, whenever we have sunrise, we get up and we start working. He blesses all creatures, and that's why there is a very famous mantra in the Rig Veda called Gayatri Mantra. Some of you must be knowing that. So this is a praise of Savita, his supreme luster. And this mantra has got a great tradition. This is Savita. There is another important deity called Varuna. Varuna is called King Varuna. He is a governor, he is a superintendent. He lives in the ocean, but he is everywhere. He has spies. They wander everywhere. They keep an eye on all activities of people, good people and bad people. And there is a law of Varuna, which is called Ruta. means cosmic order, which is truth as well. So one has to follow that Ruta as we have to follow law. Similarly, in Vedic times, all people are supposed to follow the law of Varuna. And whosoever does not want to follow or goes astray, Varuna punishes him. So he is a very fearful deity. That's why Vedic people, they used to pray him and ask his favor. So we have all these deities in the Vedas: Agni, Indra, Savita, Varuna, and so on. There is another deity called Ushas or Usha, dawn. There are very beautiful hymns, very beautiful prayers of Usha. And she is just like a very beautiful woman. Vedic people liked her. All these deities were ancient most deities, and later on somehow they lost their importance. Indra and Varuna, these were very important deities in the Vedas. But later on in Hinduism, we don't find that they are worshipped or they are praised very regularly. Instead, we have new deities in Hindu pantheon, and most important of them are Vishnu and Shiva. But we have the ancient forms of these deities in Vedas. We have Vishnu, but that Vishnu is not the same as we have in Puranas or elsewhere. Or Rama and Krishna are incarnations of Vishnu. That type of description of Vishnu will not be found in Vedas. Vishnu is all-pervading, but not so important deity in the Vedas. Similarly, we have Shiva or Shankar. We have a prototype, we have ancient form of this deity in the Vedas called Rudra. Rudra is a very powerful deity. People used to be afraid of that deity. So these new deities in the Hinduism, Vishnu and Shiva, they are the form derived from or developed from the Vedic deities. These are the Vedic deities. We have also some other deities. Rivers were praised. One of the most important rivers was Saraswati, which is now lost. Rather, the river is lost, but we have Goddess Saraswati in another form. We do not find Goddess Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, in the Vedas, but we have a river, the most important river. That was the place where Aryan civilization developed. The Vedic people used to perform sacrifices on the banks of Saraswati. So there are certain hymns addressed to Saraswati. Its flow, it must be a very wide river. And the streams are described as we have Ganga. Similarly, the same importance was attached to Saraswati. So now we have seen the deities in the Vedas, most important deities in the Vedas: Agni, Indra, Varuna, Savita, and Saraswati in brief. All this knowledge, as I said, is preserved through oral tradition. You might ask, what is this oral tradition? How did they understand that? How did they learn that? There are many ways of memorization. For example, I will recite the first mantra of the Rig Veda. Agnimile rohitam yajnasya devam rutvijam hotaram ratnadhatam. We have words: Agnim ile purohitam yajnasya devam rutvijam hotaram ratnadhatam. That's all. How to memorize this? First, one has to recite this Agni Mile Purohitam, just this unit, 7 times. Yajnasya Devam Rutvijam 7 times. Then Agnimile Purohitam Yajnasya Devam Rutvijam 7 times. Then Hotaram Ratnadhatamam 7 times. And then again Agnimile Purohitam Yajnasya Devam Rutvijam Hotaram Ratnadhatamam. This is one of the ways of memorization. The student, as I said, had to study it every day from morning to evening and memorize the whole Veda. For example, Rigveda has got more than 1000 hymns and the whole book was memorized. There were a number of ways of memorization as well, which are called modifications of the mantra. For example, I just now said how they used to memorize this. The first mantra, Agnim Ire Purohitam. So take these 3 words. Then you have some permutations. Agnim Ire, Ire Purohitam, Purohitam Yajnasya, Yajnasya Devam, Devam Rutvijam. One more technique is Agnim Ire, Ire Agnim. In this way, there are 8 Vikrutis are called Pathas. Like Samhita Patha, Pada Patha. Means separate words. Recitation of separate words. Recitation of a mantra is called Samhita. Recitation of padas or separate words is Pada Patha. Then we have Krama, Jata and Ghana. Various permutations of these words. Intermingling of these words. This is called Vikrutis or modifications. So like, for example, A, B, C, D, E, F. So A, B, B, C, C, D, D, F, F and so on like that. Or A, B, B, C. This way they used to modify the mantra so that the mantra and its accent will be preserved, will be intact. And this way, at least for the last 5,000 years, people have been reciting Rigveda and other Vedas in the same manner. That's why in the case of Rigveda, the book is not important, the oral tradition is important. This way, not only Vedas, even Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas, not only this, even Jain works and Buddhist works, they have also come down to us through oral tradition mainly. So there are a number of techniques. I'll tell you one more technique. For example, there is a poem and there are a number of verses. For example, there are 10 verses in one poem. How to memorize the poem? Just take the first word of the verse number 1, first word of verse number 2, first word of verse number 3, and this way you will have 10 words which are the beginnings of these verses. Make a sutra, make a formula, memorize that so that you can memorize the whole poem if you remember the first word of each verse. So this is a formula, this is a sutra. This way they developed a number of ways of memorization. It was not only Rigveda that was recited. As I said, there was also a very interesting Veda called Samaveda, which is singing. You have a poem, but the same poem can be sung. It can be set to a tune. So Samaveda is chanting, singing. So if you take just first mantra of Samaveda, Agna Ayahi Vitaye, this is just, I said, just like a prayer, just like a hymn or just like a mantra, I recite this. But Samaveda is something different, which is something singing. I told you about various deities in the Vedas and the battles and so on. But it is not the only thing that we should study or we should take into consideration. I would like to tell about one more important deity in the Vedas, Ashvino or Ashwini Kumara, twin gods. They were doctors of gods. They also had a number of exploits, various deeds. Vishpala a queen, she was fighting in the battle, she got injured. So Ashwinav, they gave her an iron leg. It was something like a plastic surgery in those days. They also gave new life to Chavana. He became young. He became a young man. So Chavana is the name of that sage, and we have a medicine in Ayurveda called Chavan Prash. Why is it necessary? If you take that, you feel energetic. So there are a number of deeds of this god. They cured many diseases. So it was important to pray this god for health. I spoke about battles, etc. But it was not only battles that was important. There was a civilization. There was agriculture. As I said, they had a great civilization on the banks of Saraswati. It was not only Saraswati. Actually, that territory, that region is called the region of Sapta Sindhu, 7 rivers. The 7 rivers are 5 rivers in Punjab and Sindhu and Saraswati. So this can be called a civilization of Vedic people on the bank of Saraswati. What was the geography of the Veda? We'll find a number of names, place names, which are found in Afghanistan, Pakistan today, and also Punjab and Sapta Sindhu. I told about Saraswati briefly. We have Ganga, a very important river, a very sacred river for Hindus. Similar importance was attached to Saraswati. It was a great river, now it is lost. But now people, some scholars have discovered the whole path, the track of river, Saraswati. So the flow of Saraswati, the stream of Saraswati is praised. We do not have Saraswati nowadays, but we have Saraswati in another form. It is a goddess of knowledge. Maybe it is possible that Saraswati, that description of Saraswati in the Vedas is transferred to our Saraswati, goddess Saraswati. There were many occupations. Main thing, it was agriculture. We had Rishi Sanskriti and Krushi Sanskriti. They were farmers. There were medicine men. There were carpenters. There were many arts. And we have a great message of the Rig Veda. It says, do not spend time in gambling. Concentrate on agriculture, farming, and enjoy wealth. There is a hymn, there is a mantra in the Rig Veda where a poet says, I am a poet. My father is a medicine man, a doctor. And my mother also works. This way, we do many things and get money. In Vedic times, people longed for, people wanted to have prosperity. Poverty was never glorified. And they had to toil, they had to make efforts to become rich. So becoming rich, getting power, trying our best, making efforts, live happily for 100 years. That's the message of the Rig Veda. So up till now I have given a brief information about Veda, the Vedic gods, the hero and so on, the battles, the river, the geographical area and so on. You can use this material for new games. At the same time, you can use internet, get more information about Vedas, about Rig Veda, about Samaveda, about Atharva Veda and so on. And you can get many more stories which you can utilize for finding out new games. So I'm very happy that I got this great opportunity of talking to you. And I must be grateful, especially our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. And also I am thankful to Dr. Abhay Jere, Chief Innovation Officer, Information Cell of MHRD, and his entire team. And also my institute, Bhandarkar Orient Research Institute, and my colleagues, the office bearers of Nyansa, and Dr. Gauri Moge, my colleague, who suggested me to talk briefly with you on Vedic subjects. Thank you very much.
We have just listened to Professor Shrikant Bahulkar, and I think his discourse was like a foundation of a building. So, if you wish to construct or build a new palace, first you have to consider about a, f- a very great foundation. So, this was a kind of foundation, and obviously, after that, we will need a structure for that building. So I think I'm going to play that role. So I will be introducing some points which will help you to construct the structure for your ideas, and Chinmay will give that idea a new vision, and which will be based on the games or toys which we already have today. So I think that is going to help you to come up with your own ideas, and you can explore some new things with the help of our clues or hints. So let us begin with the first problem statement. So it was related to 14 vidyas and 64 arts. So the main statement was explore the value and relevance of various arts and skills for personal and professional development. I think this is very pertinent point of 14 vidyas and 64 arts, because this kind of things, arts and vidyas, they are very important, and actually I think they are the mirror of our civilization, and they reflect on how we are developed as a person and as a society. So that is why it is very important to think in this line. And in Vedas or in Vedic literature, we had a set of 14 Vidyas, which is already discussed by Professor Bahulkar, and obviously 64 arts. So we can use all these skills, or we can merge these skills in our games or toys. And I think Chinmay can elaborate more.
Yes. You know what? I actually find this problem statement really interesting.
Certainly.
14 Vidyas and 64 Kalas. Ultimately, it all boils down to learning and development. And there are two very curious aspects of this, which our participants should actually think about. When it comes to learning, there are two types of learnings. There is formal learning, which happens in classroom, training, etc., etc. There is informal learning, which happens via observation, which happens via imitation, experience, action, etc. Similarly, when it comes to development, there is a very curious part of development which is called tacit development. It is a development which lies beyond our grasp simply because even if it happens, we can't really articulate it, we can't really formalize it. Games, toys are a kind of medium which can actually extrapolate that tacit development, which happens through these kind of arts, crafts, skills. So, this is a point which participants can actually try to focus on. Secondly, in our world today, in business, industry, and management, micro habits. It is a kind of a buzzword. Micro habit means doing something every day where you have to focus on a single task and do it consistently and consciously. So, how do you map your development? How do you track it? And how do you measure it? These are the three things that can be focused on when it comes to this problem statement.
Certainly. So let us go to the next problem statement number 65, and that is games based on Vedic deities or Devata. Nature worshipped as deities, earth, waters, Agni, wind, and sky. So, in this problem statement, you can understand that we are discussing the natural elements, and natural elements were considered as devata or deities. And I think because we are discussing all these things with reference to the early civilization, and that is why all these natural elements such as panchamahabhutas, they are considered as devata and they were worshipped. So we had winds, Marut, the god of winds, and Agni, the god of fire, and all these entities or energies, they were worshipped as devata, and they had some attributes and some goals, and they have performed many heroic deeds. So we can use this database or their stories for developing our games. And I think Chinmay would like to add something.
So, natural forces, when we look at it, elements, a lot of times we take them for granted. At the same time, there come moments when we see the ferocity and the power of nature in full play. May it be a storm, may it be a tsunami, may it be a pandemic. There are so many ways in these elements are expressed. Secondly, like Gauri said, it is an attempt of making sense of our world through understanding nature. Imagine a card game, a board game, maybe an application which matches different attributes of our environment with these kind of characters. So there is plenty of room to play around this and to explore something really creative. That's what I feel.
Yes. And I think it will reflect the ecology, environment, and our society.
Yeah. So global warming, just
Certainly.
catching about. Yeah,
I think when we are discussing the natural element, I must say, for all these things, sky is the limit.
absolutely.
Now let's move to the next problem statement. Problem statement number 66, reviving the oral tradition. I think this is very challenging kind of problem statement. And as Professor Bahulkar explained, the importance and the method of reciting and memorizing Vedas and why oral tradition has so much significance. So now you are aware of what is oral tradition. And I think even today we are connected to this typical style or this oral tradition because even today we have a system of morning or evening prayers. So every day we recite same thing, and I think that is the reflection of oral tradition of Vedas, which we can find even today. So we can use these patterns for the games, and I think Chinmay would discuss this.
Yes. This is going to be one of the most fascinating problem statements, given
Yes.
how challenging it is, at the same time, how rewarding it can be in what it achieves. So, patterns is something which inherently is fascinating. And oral tradition, the tradition of Ganapatha, Padapatha, it has repetition which is based on mathematical patterns. So, there are boundless possibilities as to what participants can do. Those who have appeared for competitive exams in their schools can remember that there are questions where there are sequences of letters, symbols, or numbers, and they have to guess the missing one. It is something which is based on pattern. So, in case of oral tradition, they can something on those lines, where they have to devise something which forces a user to think and to learn. It can be a puzzle, it can be a riddle, it can be a game which simply plays on repetition of something. So that is something very interesting.
Yes. And I would like to add one more thing because in oral tradition, Professor Bahulkar discussed mainly about recitation of Rigveda and Samaveda. So Samaveda is one more very interesting topic, I would say, and it is related to music. So Samaveda had melodies in mantras. So when the yajnas were performed, every action used to performed with a certain melody. So you can use this, I think, this idea as a hint to your game, And you can prepare your game in this fashion, like when you are going to perform a task, you will need a specific melody. And I think afterwards, when you move to your next task, you have to enhance or you have to modify that melody, and you can use many more instruments for that. So as we are discussing the digital games, we can have all these things in our games, or we can have that kind of tools. So we can use these ideas and we can convert them to our games, which will be
Absolutely.
relevant.
I would like to add one thing here.
Sure.
Comes to the problem statements on oral tradition or even on 14 kalas and 64 vidyas,
Hmm.
what we are trying to do is not necessarily just revive something which is old and ancient.
Exactly.
It is basically to draw inspiration from the best practices, if we call them that, and to bring them in our world and contextualize it. So participants should not be blindly copying this. They can borrow elements, they can borrow patterns of them and play with them and create something really original. And I think that will be beneficial if they do it.
Certainly. Now, let us discuss problem statement number 67: action and adventure games based on Vedic deities. I think this is my favorite problem statement because it has many. Sorry?
It will be of lot of people.
Yes, yes, because it has many shades to explore, and I think it is going to be a fun. Because when we are discussing action and adventure games based on Vedic deities, we can actually create our own superheroes and obviously superheroines. So we can use those stories for the games based on specific missions or targets, and also some adventures. For example, as Professor Bahulkar mentioned about the story of Indra and a demon named Vrutra, we can actually convert that story into a, a mission based game. And because it is always something about good and evil,
Yeah.
we have that tradition. And even if you observe the tradition of storytelling, there has to be one character which is good or which represents the good things, and there should be one villain,
Hmm.
and there should be a victorious hero always. Why? Because good things, they should win. So similarly, when we are discussing the story of Indra and Vrutra, and now again you can use the natural elements, because in some
Right.
suktas it is said that the demon Vrutra, he is a symbol of clouds, and those clouds has stopped the rains. And what Indra did, Indra came with his all heroic attributes. And if you can see the picture of Lord Indra, you can see him not like a typical deity or a devata we see today with four arms and all these things. He will have two arms, but he will be very mighty. So he went to fight against Vrutra, and he released all the waters from cloud, that is Vrutra, and then the rivers, they began to flow. So that was the theme. So now you can understand why we are saying natural elements were deities, and even we have a hero like Indra. You can use all this data for create your own ideas for the games.
And if I can draw a parallel,
Sure,
a god like Indra, Varuna, not only that
exactly.
his names are cool and catchy, their imagery. For those who watch all the superhero movies, they can immediately go back to Thor and
Exactly.
imagine and remember Thor's entrance in Avengers Infinity Wars. The way he descended from clouds through thunderbolt and lightning. So, this is something which has so much of scope to play around.
Exactly.
Given the potential for storytelling, imagery, this problem statement will be the most popular one, I feel.
Yes, and when you have just mentioned about Varuna, you can imagine Varuna is sitting in the ocean, middle of the ocean. He is holding only his nose, and from that only he can control the entire universe. So you can create these things And I think that will be very creative, actually.
Two things which I would like to mention, two games that I played as
Okay.
child, a teenager. First was Hercules. Hercules was
Yes.
a game which drew a lot from Greek mythology. So the game had 7 levels. Each level had a villain. At each level, there was a new weapon. So there was a
Exactly.
god which would throw thunderbolts in, say, second level, fireballs. There was flying unicorn, and the villain at the end of each level, after going through obstacles, the last stop was the villain. It was Hydra, Medusa, those kind of villains, which in mythology Hercules has conquered. So
Yes.
this is a very interesting parallel. And secondly, when it comes to teams, forming teams of
Exactly.
heroes and villains, there was a game called Counter Strike where there was live involvement of players. So one team used to play as one group, and similarly so. And they had to fight each other. The team which would win, of course, wins the game. So,
Yes.
so much can be done with this particular
Exactly.
aspect.
So we can consider these deities as allies of Indra, and they are actually helping him.
And maybe you can actually help our participants by talking about the way gods have evolved over the course of ages.
Yes, certainly, certainly. Because when we are discussing about Indra, Varuna, Vishnu, uh, Rudra, as Professor Bahulkar has already mentioned about, right now, what we know about all these deities, those informations or those points are based mainly on Puranas. So
Yeah.
there is a great tradition or history of evolution of deities. So in Vedas, you can find Indra with maybe 2 arms and who has performed 1,000 yajnas. And in Puranas, you will find the same Indra with 1,000 eyes, with 4 arms, and many more attributes.
Yeah.
So I would suggest you can use a character like which is similar to Indra, not exactly Indra, but which is inspired by Indra, and you can use both the data from Vedas and Puranas to
Correct.
build your own character which will
Participants
resemble to Indra.
focus on here is that
Yes,
the role that God plays in that world, their duties, their responsibilities, and their power. That will
exactly.
actually help them in defining their storyline.
Exactly. And when we are discussing the heroic characters, we should mention about Usha, deity Usha. We can have our own Indian goddess, which can be characterized as heroine, because Usha is actually considered as dawn. Even Professor Bahulkar has mentioned about it, and I think she is that natural energy which inspires sun, Surya.
Hmm.
सूरज से पहले उगती है.
Hmm.
अगर वो नहीं आएगी तो सूरज भी नहीं आएगा फलक पे. So this is the theme. So now you can convert this
Correct.
idea that Usha's or Dawn, she has that potential, and that is why she is called Yuvati, because she rises every day. So she is actually age old, but she is not old.
Amazing.
So she is rising from the ages, but at the same time she is beautiful, and she has that power.
एक
So
तरह
that
से
is.
देखा जाए तो
Hmm.
participants will actually be able to draw some parallels, not exactly
Like Wonder Woman, we have.
woman. Yeah.
Exactly.
तो वो रिप्रेजेंट करती है डीसी के यूनिवर्स में, that she
Ji.
represents ultimate light of truth.
Exactly.
She is a symbol of hope, but not like
Yes.
Superman, which is alien. The hope which comes from this world itself.
Hmm.
She's the most positive character in the entire superhero universe in many ways.
Yes. As you mentioned about Superwoman and truth, in Usha's, she is the symbol, or she is considered as one who always follow the rules, because she rises every day, right?
Yeah.
And that is why, and you can use in similar fashion Ashvinav, the surgeons or doctors of deities. So all these things are for you.
Just see the
Now we are going to discuss our last problem statement number 68, design and strategy based games based on Vedas and Indian civilization. I think from the beginning itself, we are discussing some aspects of Indian civilization or Vedic civilization. So I think Chinmay should uh, conduct this statement.
In my mind, this is the most ambitious problem statement which we have given from our side, because essentially it encapsulates a period of millennia. The way a civilization grows, that can be covered. At the same time, a single activity which happens in any particular day of our lives, that can be covered too. So the
Exactly.
scope when it comes to time and overall magnitude of what can be shown in the game or any sort of toy, it is immense here. So when
Yes.
a civilization grows over a course of centuries, it develops many different attributes. It starts with a normal society which is based on day to day life, trading, crafts, etc. etc. Then, slowly, agriculture, urban planning, development of institutions, military, all
Yes,
of it.
because we have so many references to battles.
Precisely. And it is a development which takes over a long time. So, what I am reminded of immediately is one of the most iconic games, Age of Empires.
Exactly.
Age of Empires drew very heavily from Roman history. A player who signed up for Age of Empires had to build their own empire and they had to start from the scratch, right from starting their own farm, slowly building their cattle and ships. They had to move on to actually having an army. And
Yes.
slowly, a kingdom was built. It took people years to play that game, and people have
Yes.
spent their lives. It also actually taught them a lot as to how to plan, how to strategize, how to actually build and bide their time. So it is not only that it is a waste of time, it is absolutely not that. It taught about history,
And
it taught about different skills and thinking patterns.
Chinmay, can we think of a kind of board game related to civilization?
Yeah, we can actually. I mean, it is very crazy thing. What I can think of snakes and ladders, which interestingly
Yes.
I got to know today, comes from Indian tradition, which was called Mokshapatam.
Mokshapatam.
So in itself, it is Indian heritage. The way, the moment we look at maps, I always found that rivers correlate or maybe they remind you of snakes, the way they move. Imagine instead of moving places, you are moving geographical places. It tracks migration of civilization instead of a player reaching to 99th house. So, even if it sounds crazy, it is something which is plausible. So, the kind of scope that we have goes on from a game which people can play for 5 years, 10 years, to something which a child plays for 15 minutes, yet learns about something which is very tangible and real when it comes to our history.
Certainly.
So that is why this is the most ambitious problem statement, and people will actually do well if they think very outside of the box when it comes to this.
Actually. So we have discussed all six problem statements, and I think today's session itself is like a treasure hunt, a game of treasure hunt, because we have discussed or we have given some clues to you. And now this is your responsibility to find a treasure of new games and innovative things from all these clues. And I think even we have enjoyed a lot uh, in this procedure of preparing problem statements and discussing all these things with you. So, for that, and I think I should express my humble gratitude towards our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji for initiating this kind of activity. And I'm actually thankful to Dr. Abhay Jere ji, Chief Innovation Officer, Innovation Cell, Ministry of Education, and his entire team. And all of them were very supportive to us. And again, last but not least, I am thankful to my institute, Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute. So we thank Bhandarkar Institute and authorities for allowing us to participate in this event. And obviously, I thank all the audience and all the participants who are listening to us today. And thank you for being with us. So I would say keep innovating, and we are looking forward to your creative ideas.